Hi and welcome back. Today we're gonna talk about lossless scaling, what it is and how you can use it. So lossless scaling is a program you can download on Steam for $7 at the moment or $6.99. Let's give it up for today's affiliate partner, pCloud. pCloud is Europe's most secure cloud storage, trusted by 20 million people. They offer top-tier encryption, lifetime storage, one-time payment, and it is simple and on the go. Right now you can get 500 gigabytes for lifetime for a price of €199 or 2 terabytes for €399 or all the way up to 10 terabytes for €1190. Check out the link in the description. And essentially what lossless scaling does is it has two different kind of ways to manipulate the game you're playing. The first is scaling type. And what scaling typing does is basically to run the game at a lower resolution than the resolution supported by your display and then upscaling the game in full resolution. And the other feature of lossless scaling is the frame generation, and they have just released the LSFG 3.0 that is capable of doubling your frame rate by 20. So that means if you have 60 frames per second running in your game, lossless scaling will attempt to multiply those 60 frames by 20, giving it a total of 1200 frames, as long as your GPU and CPU are able to follow up on that setting. Why should you consider getting lossless scaling? So the cool thing about lossless scaling is that it works on pretty much every single game. We have some of the known upscaling types are FSR and the one from Nvidia, and as well as the frame generations from AMD and Nvidia. They are only available on certain games and on certain GPUs. So if you have Nvidia, you can use the frame generation from Nvidia. If you have from the RTX GPU line and up, or if you have AMD, you are stuck with the AMD option in specific games. It doesn't work in all games, it only works on specific games that are designed to use frame generation from those companies. But lossless scaling are capable of both upscaling and use frame generation on pretty much every game, from very old games like Red Alert 2, Age of Empires, whatever you might like, to the latest AAA titles that were just released yesterday. So that is one of the things to consider, is the massive compatibility. As long as you have Windows. I don't think yet that they have released this software for Linux or Steam Deck and so on. But as long as you have Windows, lossless scaling should be working just fine on your computer. So there's that. And yeah, so one thing is the compatibility, another thing is the capabilities of the software. So if you ask me, in my opinion, this software just works extremely well. It gets the job done very well, especially the frame generation. I am a huge fan. I think I'm going to be using frame generation for every time I play in every game, because I just think what it brings to the computer is just amazing. Like I have a very modern system. I have a 4080 GPU with a 13900HX on this laptop, and despite being able to run every game at high settings, what frame generation lets me do is that gives the GPU a headroom to generate 60 frames per second of my choice. And what I can do with it is generating the 250 hertz, or 250 FPS that my 250 hertz monitor supports. So the result is having very detailed graphics, but also running at a very, very high frame rate at the same time. That is usually a challenge, getting both high frames per second in a game and also very detailed graphics. But this software just gives me both. What are the downsides? Well, of course, using frame generation like this, first of all, the frames generated are not real frames, but because the motion is so fast, it doesn't really have to be real frames. It just has to be like giving the eye a sense of motion in a certain direction, to give that experience of a smooth gameplay. And yeah, so, and secondly, there will be some latency, but the good thing is, especially with the new update, the latency is really not that big of a deal. It's not very much. If you set the software up correctly, you should have the same experience as I have, like a super butter smooth gameplay that feels super responsive and snappy. Also, another great thing about frame generation is that you can run games at a lower frame rate and still have a smooth experience. And what it leads to is your computer doesn't have to use as much power as before. And on a laptop like this laptop, it just makes it run cooler and quieter while still being able to render those 250 or whatever frame rate you desire. So it's just a more balanced experience in my opinion. The pros are just way higher than the cons, and in my opinion, I have tried the other frame generation solutions out there, and until now, lossless scaling frame generation is the definitely the most the most stable running and the most what do you call it, snappy, and with the lowest latency solution that is out there. The first thing you're going to do when you have installed lossless scaling is to first, if I was you, I would first experiment with the different scaling types and the different frame generation settings. Because, well, scaling is very subjective. Maybe you're going to use it, maybe you're just going to have it turned off all the time because you don't like scaling. That is completely up to you, but just check them all out and see if there are any scaling that you like, and if you don't, that is perfectly fine. And also check out the frame generation. Of course, I will recommend you to just use the latest version of LSFG 3.0. And for my display, since I have 250 Hertz in the display, I think that usually I would just use the 4x mode and just let the game itself render at 65 frames per second. That would give me a total of 260 frames per second. So there is that. Going a little bit down here, there's the resolution scale. If you want the fake frames rendered via frame generation to look better, you can try and get this slided all the way up to 100. And if you want more performance, you can try and set it all the way down and see what works best for you. Let's go a bit further down here and see. For rendering, I have selected off because I don't want it to sync while generating frames, and max frame latency I set that to 1, so that should give me the best responsiveness in the game. It also has G-Sync support and HDR support. I usually don't use that when I play video games, but it has that and it should work. Draw FPS is for showing the generated frames per second up in the top left corner, so that is also practical to have that on. For the capture API, I always select DXGI. I can't remember exactly why, but as I have understood it, the DXGI API is the one that just performs the best, essentially, and has the lowest latency and all of that. So yeah, that is also the experience when I have been testing it, is that this just runs better than the other options below. So yeah. For GPU and display, I select the dedicated GPU in the computer that works best on this machine. It probably will also for you. Output display is just the display that you are gaming on, and this stuff I don't touch that. Neither multi-display mode, I don't touch that either. Don't touch legacy windowed mode, don't need it. So yeah, there's that. Okay, so now we have walked through the all of the buttons right here. We just need these scaling mode. So yeah, you can set this to custom and set a scale factor. I don't use that. I just set it to auto, because what happens if you select auto and full screen, it will just take the game's window and just scale it up to full screen, and that is essentially what most people want. So I just leave it at this and everything works as it should. So yeah, now you have the functions, the basic functions of the software. So after testing and finding out what you like, the second thing you are going to want to do is to make a profile of the game you want to play. So you just press add, you type in a title here for the game, and you click browse and find the game that you would like to modify settings for. And then important is to click the auto scale on button to make sure that you are getting the software here to activate every time the game is detected open. So this is what makes lossless scaling work seamlessly on your computer. So when you have done that, you can set a delay. Usually it should just work fine with the 0, but if you have issues, you can try and delay this activation for a bit. So when you have saved your profile, as you can see, it changes here according to the selected game. When you have done that, you are going to open up Nvidia control panel, and what you are going to do is to well, you have two options. The first option is that you can go on the manage 3D settings and then go to global settings, and you will find the max frame rate here, which will be the global max frame rate, and just set the number that you would like the game to render. So for example, if I choose 65, Doom Eternal will run at 65 frames per second. What will happen here is that since Doom Eternal is configured to run at 4x the frames, I will get a total of 260 frames per second, because that is 4 times 65. Okay? One thing you can do if you have some issues running lossless scaling and getting it to render the desired frames per second is to go to program settings and find lossless scaling here, and go down here, add max frame rate and set it to off to make sure that it is not affected by the global max frame rate that you just set to 65. So there is that. And if you want specific games to run at different frames per second, you can just find the game here instead. Find Doom Eternal, for example, and set it to 100 or 120 or whatever you like. And then you're gonna make sure that Start Minimized at Windows Startup is selected. So I think that was it for this video. I hope you like this little tutorial. I hope that we have walked through all of the steps of using this program. One more thing, remember to always run your games at either windowed mode or borderless windowed. Otherwise you can have issues activating lossless scaling in the game. Other than that, I will just thank you guys for watching, and hopefully you will subscribe and hit that like button and maybe leave a comment. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.